Okay. Lambda function. So we know already how to define functions and what are the functions. So function is just uh, the syntax provided by the Python. Like you can just define a function, define a function, your function name, and the number of input parameters, input argument they're expecting, and the function body. So this is already functions already we learn. So now let's talk about the lambda function. So you can say lambda function is also one kind of a function, or you can say just expression. That's expression can take input and behave like a function. So what let's you define a function like a sum, okay? Sum your defined function. You pass some input like a 5 and you can get the expected output whatever you want. So similarly, lambda function is also expression. It also in one expression, and in this expression you consider this look like a function, and you can part the particular input and you can get the expected output. So many places where you are going to define a function that's a very short list, and even this function can be used in different places. So whenever we are going to learn more like functional programming concepts, that's a Python support, where the lambda function play a very important role to defining the different kind of transformation function, filter function, reduce function, are those cases. So we can say lambda function is another way where we as a developer can define the functions. Okay, so let's talk about the lambda function. So as you say, lambda function in the Python is a small anonymous function. So sometime you can say lambda function as a anonymous function. So generally, whenever you're defining any function, you can either defining and your function name like a calculate or sum minus everything. Excuse me. So the basic rule for defining a function, you must type the one function name, and that function name are used by the different place from where you call. But in the case of anonymous function or the lambda function, this name part is optional. That means you can define a function without any name. Anonymous means just consider anything. And that anonymous function, excuse me. So lambda function is the function that's for generally small and function that not required name, and that anonymous function a lambda function can take any number of arguments but can only one expression. So you can say lambda function is, you can say as a one expression that can take one input, two input, three input and evaluate. So it is considered as an expression or it is considered as a function. But function is the without name, anonymous function you can say. So sometime you can say lambda function or sometime you can say anonymous function. So lambda function or anonymous functions are a regular function, look like a regular function. Only the difference is it is designed for the small body of function, and this function name is the optional parameter. Okay, so question is that how Python library know that the function you define is a lambda function or ordinary function. So whenever you are defining ordinary functions, we are generally use the keyword def, your function name, your in your argument list, and your function body. Right? This is the way we are defining the regular function. Def keyword, function name, input output argument, and the function body. But in the case lambda, it is defined with the lambda keyword. So in the Python, we clearly mention this function, our expression is the lambda. Use the keyword lambda. But other programming language, when we talk about the Java or Scala or other programming language, might be they are using some different syntax. But here uh, in the Pythons, they use the lambda as a keyword. Okay, so let's talk about the syntax. Okay, so syntax of lambda function simple. Lambda is a keyword, and your input argument this, and whatever the expression, whatever the body you can say. Okay, and if your argument lambda you designing for a multi argument, you can support comma. So where the argument is a comma separated list of variable, and expression, this expression is a single expression that evaluate and return. So whatever this you are writing here, whatever the writing here, this is the expression. So expression is the statement or the code that's evaluated and returns some value. So syntax is simple. You can use the lambda as a keyword, and your argument function, lambda function argument, and the colon, and your expression that you want to as a function body. Okay, so let's look couple of examples. So it will give us a clear hint. Okay, so let's talk about the first function. Okay, so here we have a first function. So how could define a function? Simply say use keyword lambda, and you let's you take input as a x input variable, and then you can define colon, and this input variable you want to what? Let's say I want to a plus 5. Okay, so this is a lambda. So this is the expression. So this is the expression. Then we have to give some name. So here say what our name would be. Okay, so you can say give like add 5. Okay, so this is the way. Here this is the one lambda function. So what the lambda function? Lambda keyword, your input, and what your output, or you can say expression. Once you take input, what you want to? I want to perform plus 5. So overall, this is the lambda function. Consider the expression. That means you assign in a some variable, or whatever the place you can use. This is the complete any places you can use, but I want to here to show how we can use them, how can you can call them. So this is the like a look like this is the expression. Okay, but similarly like you can define like add 5. Okay, fun, that's a function. Okay, fn. So here you can take input variable a and your function body, and you can say a plus 5. Okay, okay, this is the two both are the okay. So here you can defining as a function that take input and the whatever the you want to returns. Okay, but here this is the lambda function, this is the lambda input and return. So here you can say like print, here you can pass 5 as a value. Okay, similarly here print add 5 and pass as a function. And if you run, you can get the, this is, because here we have to, this is expression, they always return the value, but notice this function is not return value. So we know we have to write the return keyword. So generally we are writing this way. Okay, then you can get it. So here in the Lambda function, by default, they are evaluated and returned. But in the case of the normal definition, generally go to the next line here. In this way, we are a def keyword, your function name, your input, and here you can whatever the output you want. Okay, this is the kind of your lambda, and in the case of lambda you just keyword lambda and your input and just whatever expression you want and give the variable name. So you notice this is the your ordinary functions, this is your lambda function, or you can say expression. So lambda function look like a variable, but this variable take your input and you can pass anything, right? This is the first example where you have your lambda syntax, your input, and your function expression output. So whatever you pass, you can use this variable as a function. So lambda function takes a single input argument takes and resulting the result whatever that you want to pass. So sometime you also need to define your lambda function can take the multiple argument. So let us example. Here you can define lambda function. So let us define lambda. Let's two input variable a comma b. Okay, and here say just let's return a multiply by b or a plus b. Okay. So in this way you can define multiplication, division, whatever you want, you can say. Okay. So here say that is the your lambda. Let's multiply, get the product. So now your lambda function. Okay, and this and here you can simply say call them print product and pass 2 comma 3. So now this is your lambda that will take a 2 input parameter. Okay, okay, and you can pass and you can get the value. So your lambda can take one argument or can take multiple arguments. 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Maybe 3. Similarly, you can write the 3. Okay. Say let's 3 sum. 3 sum. Okay. And you can say lambda and let's a comma b comma c and your expression a plus b plus c. And here's a print 3 sum 2 comma 5 comma 7. Okay, and you just run it. So in this way you can define lambda function for the different argument, maybe one argument, two argument, three argument, right? Good. So sometime you can also Python support the multi-argument variable. So you can also, so here you can define your any expression that is the lambda function, and whenever you are going to use them, you can call input what the number of input they are expecting. Okay. So what happened here? Print just you pass this expression itself. I'm not passing anything. And if you run, notice this is variable is expression. Say this is the function, it is a lambda function. So by default, if you are not passing this argument, you are printing directly. This is look like this is a variable, simple expression. If you print, then you can say, hey, this is the lambda function. Because this is the understood by the compiler, this lambda function, it will take some input parameter. You can pass the input parameters. Okay. And sometime you can also use a lambda function with a, can say, variable argument. I don't know ki one argument or two argument or three argument or four argument. So like look here, we are defining different function like one argument, two argument, three argument. Okay, so what happened? Why not we support the multi-argument? It's a depend upon the customer, the client which are using this lambda function. So the Python support, you can define here the multi-argument lambda function. So let's do. So instead of here, you can say, hey, uh, just my sum. Okay, my sums, and you can say, hey, I have a lambda function, it will say multiple arguments, just say star inputs. Okay, whatever the inputs we have are multi-arg, you can say args, multiple arguments, and then you can whatever the here body, and here you can use the function. So we can then build already some function and pass these arguments. And now it's done. I can say, hey, print. If you say my sum, this if you print, it will just print like this is the lambda function. So I have to pass the input. So here you can say, hey, no, I can pass here one argument. That's one. Uh, you can say I can pass two argument. Okay. Or you can say I pass a three argument. Or you can say I pass as a four argument. Okay. In this way, you can pass multi-argument. So now you are defining the lambda function that will take one argument, two argument, three argument, four argument, and it will maybe you want to more. You can say more. So you can pass like, right. So this is way you can define a lambda function with a multiple input argument. So depend upon when the client are going to use this lambda function, if they pass one argument, two argument, three argument for, and you receive them, and here we are use the existing function, sum function. Notice this is the sum function we are not written, that is provided by the our Python inbuilt library. So they support returns the all the definitions. Okay, the sometime we can use the existing function to meet the lambda. So lambda function, notice this is the very simplified way where you can define function as a simple variable or expression. That variable can take inputs and return output. So this is your multi-argument lambda function. Okay. So one of the complex things, sometime lambda function with another function to create some more complex operation. You can say in lambda function, let us say we have this is your lambda function that also take input another lambda function. Might be this also take another lambda function. So you can say function composition. This is the one lambda function. This is the one lambda function. You take input as another lambda function. this complete lambda function take as an input in another lambda function. So this is a functional composition. Okay, so this lambda function also support. You can define, let's you can define any apply operator, any kind of function operation you want, and another define lambda function, and you can use both to achieve the operation, right? So let us here. So we can define one apply operation. Apply operation. Blah, blah. Okay. It's your lambda function, and this will take another function. This will not take one input variable, but it will take one whatever the function. Okay, and here, okay, function. Okay, and function and comma, let's x input, and so you can say, hey function, you are a function, I can call this input. Okay, okay, so here you are defining one lambda function that will take a function and input and call the function. So here's first parameter considered as function itself, right? Now, so here your this lambda function take input as another function and some ABCD variable, and you can pass them, right? Okay. And let's you can define another function. Let's double it. Double it. So double it is our lambda function. Take x input and what did it? Double it. Just double it. Okay. Okay. So you have this is a function simple x input, and we have another function that take as input another function. So what the meaning? That means this function is the function that take input as another function. So what is the another function? You can define it with double it, triple it, and then you can use them. So here say, hey, print. I want to apply operation. What operation? I want here. You can pass double it. Which number? I want to double it like a 8 or 2 or 3 or 4. Notice? So they double it. Maybe you have another function, triple it. Okay. So here say triple it. And similarly, you can apply the same function, and instead of double it, you can say triple it. So this is the function which take an so now, so this is the you can define a lambda function that take input as another function. Here is another function. You can count this function takes some input, you can second parameter pass, right? So sometime we define a this is a functional composition. You can define a one function that take input as another function, and this function take input as x. So this is your function, whatever the input you pass. Okay, so in this way, so notice we are calling this function. This is the anonymous function. This function take input as a one function. This is the input as a one function, and this x second parameter you pass here. So notice if you pass this double it, you can call the double it, but this will automatically consider this is go with the part of double it function. This function. Okay, but be carefully here. Let me explain. So here, this is your actual function. This is your actual function you are calling lambda function. This will take a two input parameter. This will take a two input parameter. One is the function, another is the input, any variable, any value. Okay. So this is the function. So here you can say so first parameter you are a double it. So notice double it the function. This is the just expression. Here you are not passing the value. Here you cannot passing a value. So just you can say this is a double it function. So once this function take double it, this is your function and this is your actual value. So when this function going to what you say, they are going to call function dot x. Then this function will call this lambda function and pass the input x. Then come here and then double it. So be clear, this double it just pass the function name. You cannot pass here as a actual value. No, that's here. So if you are trying to say like here, print apply operation, and here you can take let's say double it. Okay, so here and here you cannot pass value like 5, 4 and comma 8. Don't consider like this. If you run, then it's okay. This is function is not because these functions are expecting function, not the actual value. Whenever you call this way, that means this function is evaluated. They are going to the call double it and return the value 8, and you are passing this is value. This is not a value, this is the function. Here the function invocation happen. So please be whenever you are doing the function composition, in the function composition here you just pass the function name, not as a actually function invocation. Here you are not calling the function, you are just telling this function take input as a function, not the actual called function. So please note, don't call the function. Here you cannot call them. You can just pass simple function name. Okay. Here this function name just receive this. Oh, this is the function. I know this is the function name. Now this lambda function is going to the call. Hey, I'm going to calling this function, and what are the input I have? I can pass. So this is the input you have whatever you want to pass, right? So this is the very you can say uh, useful utility where you are going to make a function chaining or functional composition. Here you make a higher order function, you can say function can take input as another function. Okay. Okay, so let's talk whatever these lambda function we use. We have to sure why we are using, right? So the power of lambda function is to the better shown that when you use this as a anonymous function inside another function. So can talk. So generally this is a very powerful whenever we have a function, take input as another function. Okay, another function. Okay, or you can say function of g. Okay, mathematical. And you can say the function definition take one argument and maybe with the multiple argument, whatever you can already discuss. Okay. So here in the ordinary functions, we are defining the function, my function name, and here you can pass, you can return the lambda as well as. So even here you can define your let's say my fun. Okay, my fun. You can define my fun. Maybe that will take one number input, and here you can simply say return. Maybe here you can say return. This is also you can return lambda function n colon and whatever that you want to decide. Maybe n multiply by 2. Okay. Here you can see, just here you can see whatever the input. Okay, whatever the so be clear. This is the input. When first call someone this n number, your n time, but you are returning one lambda function. Here you are returning the one lambda function that take input. Whatever the input you return, whatever this function have input, they are going to multiply in return then. So let's say you can call my uh, my fun, and you can pass here like a 2. So here return a lambda function, return lm function. Okay, so whenever now you can call this function, this is return another lambda function. Okay, if you print here, so this is the your lambda function. But here you can say, hey, this is lambda function, then I can pass some value, because this lambda function is expecting one value. So let's pass like a 10. Okay, so you are passing the 10. This lambda function is passed the 2. That means, so let's run. So 20. That's how happen it's. So here you are calling the one function, this pass as a 2. Okay, so what this is the function or ordinary function they are going to do, they return another function. So what this function return, this return is the your lambda function which take whatever the input you pass, and that will return what whatever the, this is the 2 a time 2. This is the one lambda function. Okay, so now this is your lambda function. Now say, hey, this is my lambda function. I am going to pass as a 10. So here say you can pass 10. You can pass 10. Okay, what they return? 10 multiplied by 2. So they return 20 as the output. Okay, so be clear. Oh, your ordinary function can return lambda as input. That means your lambda function is the expression can use as your input or you can use as a output, both places. This is the lambda function is the anonymous function that can be used as a simple expression, can be used as simple input argument, can be used as simple your output argument. So you can say lambda function is the very small and anonymous expression that can be used as a return value or can be used as an input value or output value. So this is your lambda function. So let's talk some use case scenario. So event handling. Lambda function can be used as an event handler, such as handling the button click or keyboard. So in our applications, if you build application on the particular button click or particular action click, you want to do something. You want to do something. Here something happen, you want to do something. So for each event, you can perform some setup code, setup function that you can implement as a lambda function. Maybe a data processing. Lambda function can be used whenever we have a source of data, multiple data you have, and you want to, I want to filtering something, then I want to mapping something, I want to reducing something, multiple operations. The pipeline, whenever you're going to build the pipeline to perform multiple operations or function, in that scenario lambda function can be used to process the data, filtering, mapping, sorting, everything. At the places the lambda functions are useful. And we talk about the functional composition. function can take another function, can take input as another function, right? So lambda function can be used as a composed functional complex function with a simpler code. You can say functional composition is one of the key feature in the case of functional programming, which Python support. You can write a function that compose with the help of another function. So you can meet the complex functional requirement with the help of functional composition. Okay, so let's example like how to do filtering. Okay, so let us we have a we have a numbers numbers. Okay, we have a numbers here. Number can be maybe a number like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, any number can be. And here I want, if you print, so these are the number, but here I want to, let's filtering the only even number or odd number, so I'll do. So here say, let's say define a function, even function, even uh, is even even. This is the my lambda function. Take one input x, okay, number take, and return x modulo 2 double equal to 0. So this is the your lambda function you define, okay. And here you can say, hey, this is the my already number, I want to apply this lambda function here. So you can say, okay, I want to even even num, okay, I want to even num, okay. So even num, so I want to just apply this filtering. So we have a option, this is the list, I want to so you can say list, and list have a function, pass another function like a filter. You can say filter, what filter, this is the my lambda function is even, okay. You can say this is the my is event function, and what are the my source number on this numbers, you can say this is the number. So in this way you can say, hey, I want to filter out with this function, and this is the my input number, on this number go apply this function and filter out whatever the remaining number, give the list I want to print. So here you can say only we are getting the list which are the even. So what we are doing here, here notice we are doing couple of things. Okay, first we are defining our lambda function. This is the even number. So this is our even number. Okay, how to check even number? Any number is input modulo 2 is 0, that is the even number. So even this line you can write directly, this code you can directly one line. Here say print and directly paste here. So here say this is the my lambda function. You can say this is my lambda function. This is number by lambda function. So what you're saying, hey, filter out. This is the my lambda function. Go to apply for each number on this numbers. This is the our numbers list, and whatever this filter output come, just make a list, and you can get them. You get the same thing. So you can write either separate your lambda function name so that someone can easily read out. This is the code also, but someone know business logic. Okay, x modulo 2 equal to 0. What is the meaning? Okay, so lambda function here give some code readability. So here our code clear. We have a, I want to make one list. That list using the filter. What is the filter? Apply the lambda function on this input source. So your filter is a function that take one lambda function or function and the source number on which they are going to apply the function. Okay, if you check here, this is the lambda function defined by the our built-in function. So this is the way you can apply the filtering on a list. So we have one list. I want to go on to apply the filtering. So this is my list. This is my list. I have a lambda function. I have a lambda function. I can say, hey, go apply this lambda function on this number. And whatever the matched output, let's make a list. And you can give the even number list. Okay. Similarly, let's you want to perform some kind of a mapping. Okay, transformation. So notice in the filtering what happened. Let's see, in the filtering you have a list. We have a list, and these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 value. You will apply function like a lambda function. This is the filter is the lambda function. You can say apply the filter with the lambda function whatever the condition true, then returns the list. They return list. Okay. So might be here you can receive n number of input, n number of argument, and apply filter some number. For example, like one. One is not a true. The one is skip. Two. Two is the even number to pass and go here. Three. Three is the skip because three is not even number. Four. Four is the pass through. Four is the pass through. Five. Five is not number. And then six. So you notice here we are passing this n input, output can be the less. So here you can pass n as the input to the filter and you can return the image output. So m is may less than or equal to your n. That means your output can be equal to the input or less. So in the case of filtering, if you passing the n input and apply the filter with the lambda function, you getting the output as a m collection, where m is less than or equal to maximum n. Okay, so filtering is this. Filtering means some, if your lambda function match, filter them, else not match, then bypass for the collection. But in the case of mapping, so if you are passing uh, one input, you get the one output. If passing the two input, always take a two input. If passing three input, always take a three input. That means just one to one transformation. Your n input, always you are getting the output as a n input. So if here we have a number of element 6, you get the output as a 6. So 6 input and 6 output. So this is known as a map, a transformation. So let us see here. So filter, let's go on to map here. So here you can say transformation, transform, transform, transform. You can say I want to going the apply map function, take a your lambda function. So what the lambda function? Let's like a double, it's double. So you can have one lambda function, double it. You can say lambda function take x input and what do x plus x, double it. Okay. So here you can pass my double it function. So this will apply on this numbers, and just whatever the transformation happen, just make a list. Okay, and here your transformation dot print. So transform to double. to double. Just so notice this is the my input and I will transform to the double it. 1 double 2 2 double 4 3 6 4 8 5 10 6. So in this way you can apply the transformation. You can write this way or directly you can write the code like this is your list. Directly you write in the here and in this your lambda function you can write the lambda function inside the okay, the both are the same thing. Okay, both are the same thing. So this is your option, but just for understanding you are use the map function to transform. That means you have a function, take x as a input and return y as a input. This is the map operation. Okay, map means if you pass this is a function, you pass two input, you get the two output. You three input, three output. Four input, four output. This is the map. Map your the lambda function what you want to transformation. This is the double it, and on the source of number, this is the source of number you are going to apply, and whatever the outcomes, whatever this outcome, make the list, so you can get the list of the value. So this is known as here the lambda function used as in your map operation, a transformation, a conversion from input from one type to another types. Okay, so this is known as a map operation. Maybe apply sorting. So we have a let's list of any student. I want to sort them, sort by the name, age, something. So for those places also we can use the lambda function. Okay. So let us example here like we have a students. Okay, students we have it, and here you can make any student like maybe let name, and you can say just name. So okay, and similarly take another attribute age. Okay, age is the number. Okay, 20. Okay, control this. That's another. That's another. We are created multiple. Okay, Alice, Alice, 22. Okay, Bob, 19. 19. Okay. So now we have a this if you print students print. So this is your student. Okay, this is okay. So now I want to display the sorting by age or by name or whatever the attributes. So here lambda function help us. So how, what lambda function helps us? So you can say, hey, I want to sort a student. So let's I want to print. So use the existing function sort function, and that required your student I want to go and sort, and while sorting what the input parameter you pass. So here say, hey, what the key input parameter, I pass the key, and here I can define the lambda function. What the lambda function say, hey, whatever the input we have here, you can say let's by, let's say by age, let's we define them by age. So you can say we have a lambda function, take one student, and get by uh, student of, let's say, age. This is your lambda function, and you can say key by age. So whenever you can defines the key by age. So this is your sort function. You can pass the student, and okay, even you can say this is inside another sorted sort oh, sorted students. Okay, sorted student in this way. So notice this is the 19, 20, and 22. Even you can say define by name. You can another function say, hey, I want to define by your name. Okay. So you can say, I want to going print sorted students with by key by your should be name by name. So now your students going to sort. You can write in the 2 line or 1 line. It's the same. So now this is the first Alice, Bob, and John. So this is the way you can use lambda function to define the collections of your any kind of students or objects. Just here you can say by this. So what say key, whatever the input they take and apply the sort that. So this sort function sorted is also library function that will help us to sorting, apply the sorting on your whatever the key you pass by name, by age, or whatever you can say. So this is the sorting of the list with the help of lambda function. So you can say validity covers like filter map and reduce filter map reduce kind of whenever you are going to data science scientist activity, or you are going to apply some data processing where whatever the input, whatever the source of data input. So generally, we are going to apply some filtering logic. Hey, filter the input, select the specific data you want to filter. I selected this data and apply some transformation function and do some transformation, and after apply some reduction plus minus summation something and print the output. So whenever you are going to create the data pipeline, at that time you are applying the filtering, mapping, reduction kind of a filter map reduce concept. Okay, so let us look the example. Nums 1 comma 2. Okay, and here you can say we know how to apply filter, map, reduce. Let's say I want to filter out only the odd number. Okay, so how to say I want to print filter out. So make a list and list with a filter, and filter I want to with a odd number only, right now. So here say like a lambda, take a number, take a number and say number modulo 2 not equal to 0. Okay, apply the original numbers. Okay, so this is the kind of a you get the if you print nums print. So this is your complete number, and you can filter out. Hey, I am only interested to do data processing on the odd number. So here maybe you have a huge data set, but you are only interested to apply some transformation or business logic on a specific input. You can apply the filter, and after that you want to maybe transformation. Okay, so you can say I want to map them, and the lambda function whatever the number I want to number plus number, or you can number multiply by 2. Okay, so now you are going to mapping transformation, filter them, map them. So once you map, multiply by 2. Okay, so here say, hey, this is the my all number, I filtering out only point of this, and I am going to apply this. So notice I am applying all the say. So let's here you can take the cut here, you can say filtered filtered nums, filter nums. Okay, filter nums, filter nums, and here you can say pass filter nums. Okay, so here you can get the all the number, you can apply filter, get the only even number, and those all even number you are going to do the operation like the transformation. So here you can say this is also, let's write in the variable here transformation, transferred, trans transferred, transformed, transform nums. And this is a transform num. Now you have a input number, you apply the filtering, you apply the transformation. Let's see, want to apply some reduction. Okay, so how to reduce? So similarly, like list map, you have to another function reduce. So for reduce, by default you say, hey, list reduce, reduce. So reduce is the function we have to take help from the import. So you can say reduce, and that reduce also take your the number what the reduce want, lambda function and number. So what the reduce want, just sum them all. I want to lambda whatever the number we have, I want to sum them. Okay, so sum need two input parameter. Let's say first comma y and just x plus y, and comma where transform number. Okay, reduced output, reduced number. Okay, reduced. So here you are doing to the filter, map and reduce. Filter, map and what? Okay, reduce. So this is just reduce, you are getting a simple number. Okay, so notice this is your source of all the numbers. You apply the filter. What you apply filter? I want to use the lambda function. Apply only even number. Okay, you can say only even number, then you can say double it and double it, then again reduce, you can reduce. So here you can apply the filter, map and reduce operation. So whenever you are going to build the data processing pipeline, at that time you have to apply some kind of filtering, mapping, and reduction. So here, these are the Lambda function. You can use the Lambda function here, or you can directly use the function name, or you can just give the logical name here, what you are doing here. So let's understand here what we did. First, apply this is your source number. Source number, this is the source number. You can say, hey, filter the number which are odd number. The number not modulo 2, this is odd number. So here you can filter out only this odd number, this, and this, and this. So you can get the output like 1, 3, 5, then 7, then 9. So this is your apply the filter. Now you can filtered numbers. This is the filtered number. Then you can say I'm going to apply the mapping. So mapping means key whatever the input number, just multiply by 2. What is the number 1? Multiply by 2. 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 Okay. And after that you can say, hey, transfer. Let's apply the reduce. Reduce operator say two value, x and y. What is the x and y? So here this is the sum and this is the accumulation. That means first you have a first number 2. So let's start from the accumulation initially for plus is the 0. You can say 0 plus 2. 0 plus 2. You are getting the value 2. Then you can say next number plus 6. You are getting the 8. Then plus 10. Then plus 10. You are getting the 18. Then plus 14. Then plus 15. In this way, you are get the exact sum as output. So reducing all number is just plus them, plus them, plus them, plus them, and get the one output. This is known as a reduce function. So filter, map, reduce. Generally, whenever you are going to defining the data pipeline or any data scientist activities, these concepts are very, you can say, help to defining your pipeline. So this is the concept of a filter, map, reduce. And Python support these kind of operations with whatever that you want, right? So these are some best practices about the Lambda function. So try to keep Lambda function as simple and concise. Don't write too much large code for the Lambda function. If possible, one liner of code. If go two or more than 3 or 4, make the split the Lambda function into the separate Lambda function. Use Lambda function for a one-time use for the simple straightforward task. So Lambda function is for the simple task that you can define and use once times. If you want another places, you can define and use them. So Lambda function is the function where you can define at the same time you can use them. The Lambda function are not going to make a reuse like your normal standard function. Okay. Avoid using Lambda function for the complex and the multi-line code. Whenever you are going to defining some function and that with the complex and that is the multi-lines kind of a business logic, don't use the Lambda function. Just use normally your ordinary function, define them. Not possible, let's split the multiple Lambda function. Use the Lambda function with a caution, they can make a code harder to read and debug. It's very, so this is the drawback of the Lambda function. This is the very hard to debug. Okay, so be carefully. Debugging is a very hard in the Lambda function. This is not an ordinary function. You can apply debug and everything, but they are for the simple and conciseness. Lambda functions are used. So these are some basic point. We as a developer, as a software engineer, our responsibility to keep in mind while writing. the Lambda functions. So Lambda functions are highly used, or you can say utility in the Python as a programming language to defining, to writing very simple and concise, readable and concise code. So readability, conciseness, and that case you can go with the Lambda function. So Lambda function help us to defining a small and concise code. Okay, and the Lambda function where you defining at the same time you can use as well. So Lambda, what is the Lambda function? Lambda function just as a expression, just as expression, but this is the functional expression. That means this will take input, you can pass as input. This lambda function can use as a expression, can use as a functional input. Another function can take input as a lambda function, and also function can return the lambda function. Okay, so lambda function play a very like it's you can say one the object, or you can say input, that can use in everywhere as a expression, as an input function, as a output function. So lambda function can use as your functional input, can use as a functional output, can use as an ordinary function, and this help us to define clear data pipeline. So whatever the you have an input source, whatever the input source, you are going to define the pipeline first. On this input source you are going to apply the function that's the take a filtering. So they are going to apply the all the inputs and make the filter out. Okay, once filtering happen, you want to apply some transformation mapping. Okay, let's go to the map. You're going to apply the map function, and after that maybe you want to another business logic, maybe you want to reduce, you can just reduce them and get the simple object, maybe sum, average, max, mean, first match, second match, last match. To kind of filter map reduce where you are going to apply, where these lambda functions are very handy and help us to define concise, simple or filtering logic, define simple or business transformation logic, and define simple or reduction operation like sum, max, mean, reduce, find first, find last. This is a scenario where the reductions can help us. So all this scenario where you are going to design your pipeline. So lambda functions are very helping tool for the Python programmer. Okay, so these are some point for with respect to the lambda function. Hope this information is helpful for you. So this is can become more fruitful for you if you are going to define some own lambda function, try to define the pipeline, try to test them. Until you are not going to writing some code practice, it's very hard to understand this lambda function. Lambda function require the practice. You write code, you test them, you evaluate them, then you feel more comfortable with the lambda function. Lambda function is the nowadays in the functional programming style is the very heavily used by the senior experienced developer. Okay, so let's use it. Let's try it. So that is for the day, and I hope this information is helpful for you. Thank you.